Chapter 1544. This brat is mine, I will make him regret this for the rest of his life. There's no need for you to interfere. Zhang Wenjing's gaze swept over Dragon Fifth, Hui Mutian, and the others. He stomped his foot on the void and directly stepped onto the stage. Boom! The entire stage trembled. Zhang Wenjing's body was shrouded in mist and runes flickered, exuding a mysterious and terrifying aura. He looked straight at Du Xiaofu and said, "Do you think you have the qualifications to be challenged by me? You may have some skills in the outside world, but in front of me, in front of my house of Zongheng, you're nothing but a flea, you won't be able to jump up again." Du Xiaofu remained standing with his hands behind his back. He raised his head slightly and a cold smile appeared on his face as he said to Zhang Wenjing, "You should be considered a genius of the house of Zongheng, but unfortunately, in front of me, you're nothing. If killing is allowed on this stage, I'll crush you like an ant." Hearing Du Xiaofu's words, Zhang Wenjing's eyes suddenly burst with a resplendent light. Blazing runes shot out from his eyes like a boiling sea of fire. His killing intent soared to the sky as he shouted, "My house of Zongheng's name has shaken the world since the ancient times. We've been unhindered under the heavens since then. The entire human race has been blessed by my house of Zongheng. What, you want to compete with your ancestors? I don't know what the other geniuses of the 9 great families are like, but if they're all like you, I won't put them in my eyes." Du Xiaofu looked at Zhang Wenjing with disdain. He was even more arrogant than Zhang Wenjing, as if he was deliberately provoking Zhang Wenjing. Du Xiaofu didn't have a good impression of the 9 great families who viewed themselves as superior. Du Xiaofu wasn't targeting the 9 great families, but facing arrogant people he would be even more arrogant. This was his personality, and it was difficult to change it. In this world where the strong were respected, the weak were prey to the strong. Strength was the law of the jungle. "You're too arrogant, you're courting death." Zhang Wenjing's eyes flashed with a cold light. Blazing runes ignited on his body, so hot that they could burn the void. The blazing flames suddenly surged as he slammed his palm towards Du Xiaofu. He knew that Du Xiaofu was an array talisman master, and the array he had set up yesterday was very strong. He didn't want to give that guy a chance. He wanted to directly suppress him with one move and bring about a greater deterrence. Zhang Wenjing's palm slammed out, and a sea of flames descended. Blazing flame runes rushed out like a tide, and in the end, they turned into a roaring fire tiger. The fire tiger pounced on its prey, seemingly distorting the space around it. It brought with it a terrifying might that could crush everything as it descended. He has just reached the peak of the martial domain realm. I'm afraid he is only a step away from the sealed region. That's the power of fire from the school of vertical and horizontal. Zhang Wenjing's cultivation of it is extraordinary. Among his peers in the school of vertical and horizontal, it is said that he is at least in the top 5. Following Zhang Wenjing's attack, the surrounding people immediately exclaimed at the terrifying aura. However, at this moment, Zhang Wenjing, who was on the martial-proof platform, felt that something was amiss. His tiger palm had actually directly pounced on his opponent's body, destroying the space around it. However, it did not destroy the former. On the contrary, the arrogant guy's figure was like lightning, not retreating but advancing instead. He leaped into the air and appeared in front of Zhang Wenjing. At the same time, a terrifying Yuan spirit storm swept through the void. It even brought about lightning and thunder, and silver-gold lightning arcs pierced through the void. The strength of the Yuan spirit was beyond Zhang Wenjing's imagination. In an instant, Zhang Wenjing felt as if his Yuan spirit was facing a supreme being. It began to tremble and become dizzy. His opponent's eyes were like black holes that wanted to devour his Yuan spirit. At this moment, Du Xiaofu did not hold back. Unlike yesterday, he needed to make a big move to draw out the person he wanted to meet. Otherwise, this legalism trip would be in vain. At this moment, facing the 9 great clans, Du Xiaofu was also a young man. After all, the bones in his body were still young, and the blood of youth was easily boiling. He also wanted to know how strong these top experts of the younger generation were. Du Xiaofu did not use any martial arts skills. He only used the skills of a spirit talisman master. However, at this moment, Du Xiaofu also used the power of his Yuan spirit, which was the fusion of 3 spirit thunders and spiritual roots. Du Xiaofu rarely used this kind of Yuan spirit power. After the fusion of 3 spirit thunders and spiritual roots, it was difficult for others to recognize him. At this moment, Du Xiaofu burst out with the power of his spirit talisman master identity. It could be regarded as the pinnacle attack of a spirit talisman master identity. It was a mixture of 3 kinds of spiritual thunder, a mysterious and powerful spiritual root, and the power of the mysterious cultivation method. How terrifying and powerful it was! This was also a Yuan spirit attack. How terrifying was its attack power! Rumble. On the martial-proof platform, lightning flashed and thunder roared. The terrifying silver-gold lightning covered the sky. The terrifying aura made the surrounding living beings tremble. The primordial spirit beast souls trembled. Many people were about to collapse. Not good. At this moment, it seemed that they all felt something at the same time. Many of their eyes suddenly changed. He has spirit thunders. On the martial-proof stage, Zhang Wenjing was stunned. He guarded against Du Xiaofu's talisman array, and also guarded against Du Xiaofu's Yuan spirit attack. However, he did not expect that Du Xiaofu's Yuan spirit attack would be so powerful that he could not touch it at all. Du Xiaofu even fused a spirit thunders into his body. Du Xiaofu rarely used the power of a spirit talisman master, but it did not mean that his Yuan spirit was not powerful. Even the sacred elder of the Golden-Winged Rock clan had praised Du Xiaofu's Yuan spirit power before. It was not inferior to the abnormal power of a martial artist. Moreover, Du Xiaofu's Yuan spirit had 3 types of spirit thunders. Bang! Du Xiaofu's punch landed directly on Zhang Wenjing's body. Although it looked like a light punch, it destroyed Zhang Wenjing's defenses as easily as crushing dry weeds. After that, Zhang Wenjing coughed out a mouthful of blood. His body cracked as a bloody mist sprayed out. When he spat out the blood, Zhang Wenjing was indeed one of the true geniuses of the school of vertical and horizontal. He actually came to his senses and screamed. However, it was too late. That punch was too mysterious. It destroyed Zhang Wenjing's body, and the power of the spirit thunders invaded his Yuan spirit. In the end, his body was sent flying and fell to the square below the martial-proof stage. He was severely injured, but he survived. Bang! Everyone watched as Zhang Wenjing fell from the martial-proof stage. At this moment, everyone's hearts seemed to have stopped beating. Spirit thunders. That arrogant kid's body has merged with a terrifying spirit thunders. In the distance, the eyes of the old man and elder from the school of legalism shone brightly. No one expected that the battle between Zhang Wenjing and that arrogant guy would end up like this. Zhang Wenjing was as if he couldn't withstand a single blow and was defeated instantly. He didn't even have the strength to attack again. This made everyone extremely shocked. How could this be? This is impossible, impossible. Zhang Wenjing struggled to stand up and looked at Du Xiaofu on the martial-proof stage. His eyes were blank and he couldn't believe that he had lost. He had lost in such a miserable and embarrassing way. He wasn't arrogant. He has the ability to do so. This is his true strength. In the distance, a beautiful, beautiful and shy woman with a smile that was like a flower spoke. Not far away, Huang Linger's 7-colored eyes were also filled with divine light. You can't withstand a single blow. Next, famous expert. Du Xiaofu stepped into the air. His battle robe and hair fluttered as he looked around disdainfully. Suppress. Hui Mutian made his move. He directly jumped into the air above the martial-proof stage. The terrifying aura on the surface of his body surged like a storm. Mysterious runes covered his body and he activated his martial vein. He was a supreme genius who cultivated the famous expert's supreme cultivation technique. His martial vein turned into a storm and swept across the sky. Hui Mutian also activated his martial vein spirit. It was a huge butterfly. When the butterfly spread its wings, it could cover the void. The shadow of a phoenix appeared on the butterfly's wings. The heavenly wind martial vein formed by the famous expert's wind energy and the ancient phoenix blood heavenly butterfly as his martial vein spirit. Hui Mutian is too strong. He's even stronger than Zhang Wenjing. Hui Mutian used his full strength right from the start. He who strikes first gains the upper hand. The surrounding people exclaimed. They didn't dare to blink as they waited for the result. The martial vein spirit turned into a storm and the ancient phoenix blood heavenly butterfly flapped its wings. Hui Mutian was worthy of being one of the famous experts. He was peerless and powerful. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Du Xiaofu made his move. With just a thought, silver-gold lightning arcs covered the sky and covered the earth. It was as if heavenly lightning was about to destroy everything. Du Xiaofu was clearly a spirit talisman master, but at this moment he displayed the invincible demeanor of a martial artist. Du Xiaofu was too terrifying. It was as if he had crushed Hui Mutian in terms of cultivation realm. Cultivation realm was above everything. Then, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Du Xiaofu condensed a flood dragon in his hand and directly blasted Hui Mutian off the martial-proof stage. Bang! The entire square trembled. Hui Mutian coughed out large mouthfuls of blood. He had used all his strength and attacked first, but he still ended up like this. At this moment, only Hui Mutian himself knew that the primordial spirit in his mind was still resisting the remnant of the spiritual thunder. His primordial spirit was injured and his body was not in good condition. Still unable to withstand a single blow. Next, Buddhism. Du Xiaofu was in the air. He was arrogant and fierce. His battle clothes fluttered in the wind. At this moment, his aura was completely different from yesterday. He was like a supreme being in the sky. Amitabha, Heng Qi made his move. The string of Buddha beads hanging around his neck was thrown out. There were a total of 108 beads. Bright light shone and runes appeared in the sky. They turned into 108 Buddha shadows and gathered into a huge array. It suppressed Du Xiaofu. The sound of Buddha chanted and the Buddha light shone. It was as if it wanted people to put down their butcher's knife and become Buddha. Originally, there was nothing, so where did dust come from? Du Xiaofu made his move. He waved his hand and a golden saber shadow swept across the sky. He activated the third level of the Saber Soul Annihilation. The saber light was accompanied by silver-gold spiritual thunder. It was a world of difference compared to yesterday's attack. The saber radiance and electric arcs filled the sky, destroying everything and cutting through the void. The 108 Buddha shadows were destroyed, and deep cracks appeared on the 108 Buddhist beads. The saber light pierced through the sky and was not extinguished. It went straight for Heng Qi's forehead and wanted to shatter his primordial spirit. Heng Qi retreated quickly. The Buddha light shone brightly. His eyes were trembling. The runes on the ring scar on his head flowed and turned into a golden vajra. Only then did he resist the terrifying saber light. Bang! But in the end, Heng Qi could not escape defeat. His body fell from the sky like a meteor. Du Xiaofu blasted him with a beam of energy from afar. Piff! Fresh blood splattered on the ground. Heng Qi's body was cracked, revealing his white bones. He would not be able to recover in a short period of time. Slightly stronger, but still unable to withstand a single blow. Next, Taoism. Du Xiaofu stepped into the sky. He was like a true god of war. He looked down on the world and gave pointers to the heroes. Chapter 1545. Immeasurable Deity. Immeasurable. Now that Master Void Spirit had entered the arena, he had no way out. If he didn't even dare to enter the arena at this moment, the dignity of Master Void Spirit would no longer exist. Boom! Master Void Spirit used his full strength as soon as he attacked. He activated his Meridian Spirit and Martial Vein, and his aura could destroy the world. He also activated the extraordinary treasures on his body, which turned into many beast shadows. For a moment, the aura surged, the beast shadows roared, and the birds and beasts covered the sky. As the wind and clouds surged, they all rushed toward Du Xiaofu. Roar! This scene was too terrifying and it shook everyone. Fierce winds blew, sand and stones flew, and runes intertwined with each other. A series of earth-shattering techniques were activated, and anyone who saw it would be shocked. Even the powerful cultivators watching from afar looked at Master Void Spirit with admiration. He was definitely one of the best among the younger generation. To activate so many techniques in a row, not only did he need to understand the profound meaning, but he also needed the support of surging Shen Qi. Roar, Du Xiaofu attacked. Lightning flashed, thunder rumbled, and silver and golden lightning arcs covered the sky. He activated countless beast energy and gathered it into a beast tide. With shocking roars and beast power, it swept out like a wave. In the rumbling sound of the void exploding, it directly broke through Master Void Spirit's technique. The beast tide destroyed everything, and wherever it passed, it destroyed the void and destroyed all the enemies. Go down! A beautiful saber light flashed through the sky and destroyed the void. That was Du Xiaofu's Saber Soul technique, Saber Soul Slash. It could destroy the opponent's body and primordial spirit. Master Void Spirit fell and finally landed on the square, staggering back. Crack! With each step, Master Void Spirit staggered backward. The ground under his feet was indestructible, and even the stone slabs of the square, which were reinforced by the array, showed traces of cracks. Blood flowed out from between his eyebrows. His eyes were dull, and his face was filled with shock. If you could kill on the martial-proof platform, your primordial spirit would have been destroyed, Du Xiaofu said to Master Void Spirit. His hair danced behind him, and he had a rough understanding of the top young cultivators of the 9 forces. They were very strong, and definitely not someone of the same level in the outside world could resist. There was no doubt about this. But compared to the golden-winged great rocks, Du Xiaofu felt that Master Void Spirit, Heng Qi, and the others couldn't even compare to Jialo Kaling. So long as Jialo Juekong, Jialo Jueyo, and the others set foot in the beast region, they would be able to fight them directly. On the other hand, if Jialo Juekong and the others were at the same level as Master Void Spirit and the others, and were all at the peak of the domain realm, then they would be able to suppress them to the point of suffocation. Next, the Confucian School. Du Xiaofu pointed at the Confucian School. At this moment, he had single-handedly taken on the representatives of the 9 great clans. Just how peerless was his figure in battle armor. It made the surrounding creatures tremble inwardly. Boom! Yen Lihan stepped onto the martial-proof platform, but there was no way out. He channeled the power of heaven and earth and spat out a mouthful of blood, offering his blood to the sky. In my name, let the power of the wizard god descend upon me. As soon as he finished speaking, the sky changed color and a mysterious power descended. Resplendent runes fell upon Yen Lihan, causing his body to swell and his aura to rise. In the end, Yen Lihan became a 100-meter-tall giant. He looked like an ancient wizard god who had traveled through time and space. Everyone trembled. The enormous wizard god's body emitted a hazy mist. Its aura was terrifying, like a million mountains descending from the sky. It made people's hearts feel like they were going to explode and go limp. Rumble! The enormous body of the shaman god made a move, causing the entire sky to be covered in talisman markings and boundless and surging force. It was like a string of torrents had erupted, and it rumbled as it smashed down towards Du Xiaofu. That terrifying power caused the heavens and the earth to boil, and everywhere it passed, space would explode and shatter. That's the power of the wizard god. The predecessors of the Confucian school are related to the legendary great wizards of the primordial era. The power of the wizard god was once the strongest existence in the world. It has been passed down to this day, and it still has the power to destroy the world. A legalism elder in the distance spoke. The power of the wizard god was too terrifying. It had a glorious past that was hard for people to imagine. Du Xiaofu's battle robe fluttered. He was also moved by the power of the wizard god. Rumble! Immediately after, Du Xiaofu attacked. His whole body glowed, emitting an ancient aura. Silver-gold electric arcs intertwined, flickering resplendently. They formed a silver-gold long spear in front of him. It was as if lightning had gathered. When this silver-gold long spear gathered, the void suddenly rumbled and trembled. A supreme pressure descended. This silver-gold long spear was formed by Du Xiaofu's various methods. It pierced through the void, leaving a pitch-black crack in space wherever it passed. It destroyed everything in its path and finally collided with the enormous wizard god's body. Rumble! This collision caused the energy of the world to become chaotic. The sound of the collision was like thunder. The talisman arrays on the martial-proof platform were trembling. Talisman scripts filled the sky, and energy surged in the sky. The chaotic space gradually calmed down. The enormous wizard god's body was shrinking. After being pierced by the silver-gold long spear, it directly exploded, turning into broken talisman scripts and energy. The aura made the living beings tremble. Puff, Yen Lihan's body appeared. He coughed out large mouthfuls of blood. At the same time, his body was also pushed back and fell into the square below the martial-proof platform. He staggered for more than 10 steps before stabilizing his body. His clothes were torn and tattered. His face was pale, and his eyes were filled with shock. Next, Mo Clan. Du Xiaofu spoke. He stood proudly in the void above the martial-proof platform like a god of war. Mo Clan's Mo Junyu stepped onto the martial-proof platform. Her graceful figure was moving. Her entire body was covered in bright blue talisman scripts. She activated her meridian spirit. The aura of a peak mortal venerable filled the air. A shocking aura descended from the sky, turning the void above the martial-proof platform into a vast ocean. A huge divine turtle phantom appeared. The power of water can turn simple into complex. A drop of water can turn into a vast ocean. The meridian spirit of the ancient sea-swallowing divine turtle. An expert from the crowd spoke. That graceful and slender body actually contained such frightening power. The vast ocean stirred up thousands of huge waves. The divine turtle's cry shook the 9 heavens. It pressed down on Du Xiaofu. Break! Du Xiaofu soared into the sky. He stepped on the waves and waved his hand, destroying the divine turtle phantom. Go! Mo Junyu still had a treasure on her. It was a pearl that was as bright as the sun. It turned into a huge beast phantom. Roar! The beast phantom's roar shook the heavens. It was indescribably ferocious. It enveloped Du Xiaofu. Its aura was enough to crush an ordinary martial domain realm cultivator. It was definitely not an ordinary treasure. Roar! Du Xiaofu formed a hand seal and punched out an azure dragon phantom. It was like a fish in water in the vast ocean. It collided with the huge beast phantom. This collision was like raging waves crashing against the shore. It was about to shatter the void. The rumbling sounds shook people's souls. In the end, Du Xiaofu won by colliding with Mo Junyu's magical weapon. Everyone was shocked. Dang dang! A terrifying force swept out. Mo Junyu's figure was pushed back and fell to the ground below the martial-proof platform. Her beautiful figure was weak and her face was pale. However, her injuries were not serious. At this moment, Mo Junyu was secretly surprised. She could feel that the other party had done it on purpose. That vast force did not hurt her. That arrogant guy seemed to be holding back on purpose. He was not as fierce as he was against the school of Vertical and school of Mo. Could it be because she was a girl? The school of Mo has lost. Next, school of Yin-Yang. Du Xiaofu no longer bothered with Mo Junyu. He turned his gaze towards Qi Jiajun. That young man was valiant and had a valiant bearing, exuding a heroic aura. He bore a faint resemblance to that holy and dignified woman. Arrogant, Qi Jiajun made his move. A mysterious aura spread out from his body. The light around him was like the stars in the sky. That arrogant guy was even more arrogant than him. This made Qi Jiajun feel very unhappy. Qi Jiajun's body was covered in starlight. He directly activated his martial vein and used his martial vein spirit to form a starlight armor. It was extraordinary and divine, like a holy spirit, noble and proud. It carried a vast aura that covered the sky and covered the earth. It made people's hearts tremble when they looked at it from afar. Rumble! A huge tree appeared in the sky. This tree was resplendent and translucent. The crown of the tree covered the sky. The leaves were like stars in the sky. At this moment, it was as if this world had suddenly fallen into the curtain of night. The pressure was rolling, and only the stars in the surroundings were densely packed. There was a river of stars hanging in the sky, and a vast aura covered the sky and earth. Tai Chi mystic yin and yang. The stellar tree is the martial spirit. This Qi Jejun is also a martial spirit. He is the youngest, but his cultivation is outstanding. He is indeed extraordinary. In the night sky, the stars revolved. Legalism experts revealed Qi Jejun's strength. Chapter 1546. Du Xiaofu looked at the gigantic star tree with curiosity and surprise in his eyes. Suppress. Qi Jejun exploded. His hair danced in the wind, and his eyes were like the two brightest stars. Activating his martial veins and martial spirit, they swept out together. It was as though he was pushing the stars in the sky. His aura was terrifying, and it was as though a river of stars was crashing down, suppressing the entire area. This attack was too strong. It was incomparably strong, causing Heng Qi, Su Lingzi, Mo Junyu, and the others to shiver in fear. They felt that if they were to face Qi Jejun now, the chances of them defending against such a terrifying attack were too slim. However, Du Xiaofu managed to defend against it. Under the shocked gazes of countless people, Du Xiaofu soared into the sky as though he was walking in the river of stars. Terrifying silver-gold lightning arcs burst out from his body, and he was like the brightest sun in the sky, dispersing the night sky and scattering the stars in the sky. The silver-gold lightning arcs burst out, bringing with them the pressure of a supreme being. A terrifying Yuan spirit energy swept out in all directions. The river of stars swept out, and the star tree suppressed. However, when it encountered Du Xiaofu at this moment, it completely dissipated and was neutralized. That spirit talisman master just had to fight with the demeanor of a peerless god of war. He was like an invincible martial artist, a ferocious beast that could sweep through all directions. It's really similar. In the distance, Huang Ling looked at the figure in the battle suit amidst the starry sky. That similar demeanor made her involuntarily think of a person. That person also had that kind of invincible posture, and at this moment, it also appeared on this guy. Seems familiar. It's like a person. In the Buddhist sect, Jiao Ling frowned slightly. That young man in battle armor on the martial-proof platform seemed like a familiar face. Qi Jejun was shocked. He was actually being suppressed. Everything about him was being suppressed. That fellow was like a peerless supreme being that could sweep through everything, making it hard for him to withstand and destroy everything about him. Break. Du Xiaofu unleashed his might, and a terrifying storm of Yuan spirit energy swept out, breaking apart the stars in the sky. Then his fist landed on Qi Jejun's armor. Bang! The starlight armor on Qi Jejun's body cracked and was directly shattered by the punch. The silver-gold lightning arcs surged like a sea of thunder. Dang dang! In the end, Qi Jejun was knocked off the martial-proof platform and landed on the square. Apart from the cracks on his armor, his injuries were light. Qi Jejun was secretly astonished. He had clearly felt that the arrogant fellow had held back and hadn't used his full strength in that last punch. Next, the farmer family. Du Xiaofu spoke in the air above the martial-proof platform, drawing the attention of the crowd back to their senses. "Let's go," he said. Jiang Yunfeng was helpless, but there was no way out. Whether he won or lost, he had to go on stage. This was his own choice. Obviously, this choice was not wise, but he had already fallen into the trap. Bang! Jiang Yunfeng attacked with all his might. He didn't hold back at all. Regardless of whether he won or lost, he had to go all out. His martial vein and meridian spirit were activated. The entire void trembled and the ground rumbled. The farmer family's Li Xiaofu comes from ancient times. Countless ancient shocking experts have emerged from it. This Jiang Yunfeng can't be underestimated. Some people sighed at Jiang Yunfeng's strength. He wasn't inferior to Zhang Wenzheng and Hui Mutian. But he couldn't escape the fate of defeat. He was swept off the stage by Du Xiaofu. However, Jiang Yunfeng didn't suffer any serious injuries, so he didn't intend to continue the fight. Jiang Yunfeng already knew the outcome. That seemingly arrogant fellow was a terrifying existence. Unless the two fellows from the farmer's house made a move, it was impossible for anyone to stop him. Defeated, all the great clans lost. Is this real? Who can tell me if I'm dreaming? Is that guy really the reincarnation of the god of war? Too scary. Is that guy really just a talisman master from the outside world? Everyone was shocked. The representatives of the great clans had been defeated cleanly. Compared to yesterday, Gong Sun Xiong, Su Haohui and the others had been defeated in a more embarrassing manner. Su Haohui, Gong Sun Xiong and the others, who were cursing inwardly, had their mouths wide open. They couldn't close their jaws. Their eyes were filled with shock. They had never thought that even Zhang Wenjing and Hui Mutian, who were ranked in the top 3 of their clans, would be trampled so easily. That arrogant kid, the more I look at him, the more I like him. How good would it be if he was a disciple of the legalism school? As a matter of fact, there were even quite a few young girls in the densely packed group of legalists who began to feel their hearts ripple. That young man in battle robes swept across the 4 directions. He had a peerless demeanor. Is this true? Hurry up and tell me if this is true. Yu Bufan's eyes were dull as he stared at Mu Yuming. He pinched Mu Yuming's face fiercely. He couldn't believe what had just happened. But why are you pinching me? Mu Yuming cried out in pain and rolled his eyes at Yu Bufan. Then he was also shocked. His heart trembled and his body trembled with excitement. He said, "It's real, it's real. Even Zhang Wenjing, Hui Mutian and Qi Jiajun are no match for him." Dragon Fifth had been staring at the martial-proof stage. The shock in his heart was no less than the others. However, at this moment he was not afraid. He even felt a little lucky. Dragon Fifth was glad that he could still fight. That arrogant kid had not been defeated by the 8 great clans. Dragon Fifth, it's your turn now. On the martial-proof stage, Du Xiaofu looked at Dragon Fifth. His eyes were shining, and his battle robes were fluttering in the wind. Good Yuan's spirit energy. Dragon Fifth soared into the sky. Runes covered his body, and an illusory dragon shadow appeared around his body. Roar! When Dragon Fifth finished speaking, a surge of dragon might surged. The light that contained the might of a supreme being turned into a whirlpool. In the end, a white dragon that was at least 10,000 feet long rushed out of the whirlpool. At this moment, as the terrifying dragon power descended, there were immediately low roars in the surroundings. Everyone was trembling with fear. The terrifying dragon power came from the bloodline and beast soul. Unless one was strong enough, they could not resist it. The dragon roared in the sky, and the sound waves rolled, making the surrounding spirit beasts crawl. Under the dragon power, everyone trembled. It was a real dragon. The white dragon scales were shining, and there were 5 claws on its abdomen. No mixed-blood dragon could compare to it. As the descendant of pure-blooded dragons, Dragon Fifth was proud enough. He even dared to be proud of the younger generation of the 9 great clans. To him, the humans of the outside world were only ants. The bloodline of dragons was enough to prove everything. It was said that in the ancient times, the beast race ran rampant in the world. The 3 legs of the Qilin, dragons, and phoenixes reigned supreme. Since ancient times, there were endless legends left. At that time, the human race was still insignificant. It's a pity that I, the dragons, am a primordial soul supreme. Boy, you can't be so arrogant anymore. The white dragon rushed to the martial-proof stage. Its huge body crossed the void, and half of it was submerged in the sea of clouds. The ferocious dragon swooped down, and its eyes were like the sun. The dragon claws tore through the air, and in the next moment, a roar sounded from its mouth like a sonic boom. Roar! The dragon roared continuously, and countless dragon shadows floated in the sky. The sound was melodious, but it could penetrate the void and make the world boil. In an instant, all kinds of supreme talismans covered the sky. The terrifying aura was peerless, and it shook the soul. It was as if the world was about to collapse. Everyone shut your ears. This is the dragon's soul heavenly roar of the dragons. A legalism expert in the distance transmitted his voice, and it landed in the square. That was the terrifying technique of the dragons. Not all dragons could successfully cultivate it, and it specialized in attacking the soul and primordial soul. That was the supreme technique of the dragons, and it was too terrifying. The dragon's roar was melodious, and the dragon's might was supreme. The sonic boom was accompanied by dazzling talismans, and it suppressed Du Xiaofu. It was a kind of supreme suppression on the primordial soul, and it was enough to destroy all primordial souls. The dragon's soul heavenly roar was too terrifying, and it made Hing Qi, Su Lingzi, and the others close their 5 senses. However, Du Xiaofu was not afraid. It was just a primordial soul attack. Dragon 5th's primordial soul attack was not weak. In fact, it was already abnormally strong. However, the problem was that Du Xiaofu's primordial soul was just as abnormally strong as his physical body. It was far stronger than Dragon 5th's. No one knew that in Du Xiaofu's Naiwen Palace, the Scarlet Horse Monkey's primordial soul was sitting cross-legged on the 9 Revolutions Divine Lei Lian, and it was unmoved. Electric arcs spread out, and it was like a boulder. Roar! Dragon 5th didn't just use his primordial soul attack. At this moment, his huge body swooped down from the sky, and he roared as he charged towards Du Xiaofu. His dragon claws tore through space, and his ferocious dragon mouth was like a blood-red vortex that could swallow everything. Du Xiaofu didn't say a word, but his figure disappeared from the spot at an extremely strange speed. He moved freely in the primordial soul attack and the sky full of dragon talismans. Dragon 5th's expression changed when he saw Du Xiaofu's figure disappear from his eyes. However, it was too late. Du Xiaofu's figure quietly appeared on the dragon's head. In the next moment, under everyone's gaze, the young man in battle robes didn't look like a talisman master at all. He was like the reincarnation of a war god. He punched out, destroying space, and a pitch-black ring of light appeared around his fist. The punch landed directly on Dragon 5th's head. Bang! A muffled sound came from Dragon 5th's head. His dragon scales shattered, and his dragon's skin split open. Blood splattered high into the air, and it looked very tragic. Bang, bang, bang. Du Xiaofu's fists were like a torrential rain as he punched several times in succession, aiming for Dragon 5th's forehead. Roar, roar. Every punch hit flesh, and the power penetrated the dragon's bones, causing blood to splatter from Dragon 5th's forehead. He screamed miserably, and in an instant he was on the verge of death. His bloody mouth spat out dragon blood, and the dragon's blood dyed the martial-proof platform red. Boom! Dragon 5th's huge white dragon body fell directly onto the martial-proof platform. Strictly speaking, he was smashed down from the sky by Du Xiaofu's fists. He fell heavily, causing the hearts of countless people to tremble. All of this happened too quickly, especially the last scene. It was completed in just a few breaths. The terrifying dragons, Dragon 5th, a pure-blooded descendant of dragons, was being stepped on in front of everyone's eyes. He was on the verge of death and couldn't move at all. I've said it before, dragons have no right to be arrogant in front of me. Perhaps it was because he was from the Golden-Winged Rock Clan, or perhaps it was because he cultivated the Golden-Winged Rock Clan's cultivation technique, but Du Xiaofu had never had a good impression of dragons. Bang! At this moment, Du Xiaofu did not show any mercy to Dragon 5th. In the end, he raised his leg and kicked Dragon 5th's huge white dragon body off the martial-proof platform, causing dragon blood to splatter and dragon scales to shatter. Oh my god! That kick, which sent the dragon flying, was like kicking the hearts of countless people around, causing their hearts to tremble violently. That arrogant guy, how terrifying and arrogant was he, looking down on the world. The strongest representatives of the 8 great families and the dragons, Dragon 5th, took action, but in the end, they were swept away by a talisman master from the outside world with the power of primordial spirit. This was a humiliation, a kind of supreme suppression, a kind of invincible and peerless style. Is this a kind of premonition? A premonition that our 9 great families are going to decline from now on. Among the onlookers, someone could not help but speak, feeling very depressed. A talisman master from the outside world is so tyrannical, how terrifying is this? All the onlookers were silent, feeling depressed. No one would think that at this moment, the young man in battle robes was arrogant and courting death. Just a moment ago, the young man in battle robes defeated the geniuses of the 9 great families with an invincible style. Was this kind of person just arrogant? Even if he was arrogant, for all the onlookers at this moment, it was a matter of course, because this was a world where strength was respected. This boy must be used by me. If he is used by others, then it will be a big problem for legalism. Among the legalism experts in the distance, someone spoke. On the martial-proof platform, Du Xiaofa looked around. His battle robes were stained with blood again, revealing a bit of fierceness, and said loudly, "Only legalism is left. Don't tell me that no one dares to go up." His voice spread out, resounding in all directions, echoing for a long time. Hearing these words, for almost all the disciples of legalism present, they were particularly frightened. That guy, in the end, was still thinking about legalism. Legalism had gathered all the outstanding figures of the younger generation, except for those who were in seclusion. Almost all of the top 1,000 and 1,000 were outside the martial-proof platform at this moment. However, at this moment, those originally valiant and extraordinary figures were secretly trembling. Pairs of bright eyes were looking at each other. In the end, everyone's eyes fell on the young man with an awe-inspiring temperament in the front. The awe-inspiring young man's eyes jumped. This was legalism. At this moment, he was the leader of the present. He could not retreat. The young man walked out, looking at Du Xiaofu. "Let me do it." Suddenly, a voice came from the distance, and when the last word fell, the figure had already appeared in the sky. Chapter 1547. It was a young man in his late 20s, dressed in a brocade robe. His black eyes were as dazzling as obsidian, revealing a heroic and awe-inspiring aura. On his handsome face, his seemingly calm eyes hid a sharp gaze. His aura was oppressive, making people feel that he was filled with an indescribable sense of danger. "Great, second brother is here." Li Chia, who was defeated yesterday, was excited when he saw the young man in brocade robe. "Second brother is here. That kid is definitely no match for him." A woman wearing a long dress from the school of legalism was very excited. She was tall and slender, and her appearance was elegant. At this moment, she also agreed that the arrogant brat was very strong, unbelievably strong. However, when facing her second brother, she was bursting with confidence. Her second brother was absolutely undefeatable. No matter how strong that arrogant brat was, he was definitely not her second brother's opponent. "Brother Qianran is here. Brother Qianran is going to fight in person." Some of the legalism disciples who were originally frightened and looked at each other, when they saw the man in brocade robe appear, it was as if they were immediately injected with a cardiac stimulant. All the disciples inexplicably surged with an inexplicable confidence that ordinary people could not understand. Even many elders and powerhouses of legalism had a faint smile in their eyes at this moment. In the hearts of all the people from the school of legalism, the young man who had come was called Han Qianran. He was the strongest existence among the younger generation of the school of legalism. Even the other supreme figures paled in comparison to him. Of course, Han Qianran was the strongest existence of the younger generation of legalism, and the other 2 monsters had to be excluded. In fact, those 2 monsters had never fought in the clan. They probably hadn't fought outside for at least a decade. Under the witness of all the disciples of legalism, Han Qianran had always been the peak of the younger generation of legalism. He had never been defeated and had long been far ahead of his peers. Han Qianran, he's actually going to fight. Is he the Han Qianran of legalism? The young powerhouses of other major forces and families were attracted by Han Qianran at this moment. Han Qianran's name had already spread among the other big families and some top forces. Han Qianran, this name, was the strongest among the younger generation of legalism. When the young man in the brocade robe appeared in midair, the space on the entire martial-proof platform quietly froze. A faint breeze blew, but it was unable to disperse the tense atmosphere. Some of the legalism elders and experts present looked at the brocade-robed young man in awe. Such a transcendent youth had long surpassed the many experts and elders of legalism. The young man was rising proudly. Before too long, he would become the pillar of the school of legalism. He would be able to carry the banner of the school of legalism. The legalism youth who had just walked out saw the brocade-robed youth and immediately revealed a smile and reverence in his eyes. His serious expression instantly relaxed, and after bowing, he respectfully retreated. Du Xiaofu landed on the martial-proof platform and turned to look at the person who had just arrived. His eyes slowly surged with some light. The invisible majestic fluctuations that emanated from the person who had just arrived made Du Xiaofu's heart tremble. The person who had just arrived was indeed very strong. The martial veins in Du Xiaofu's body also fluctuated slightly. He felt a somewhat familiar aura from the young man. I didn't expect to be able to have such a small surprise on the martial-proof platform this time. However, I'm very sorry to tell you now, just as Du Xiaofu was sizing him up, the brocade-robed youth also slowly traversed the space and directly landed on the martial-proof platform. Boom! When his feet appeared on the martial-proof platform, everyone could feel a monstrous aura from the young man's body that swept out in all directions like a storm. In that instant, the runes were dazzling and the handsome figure was wrapped in light. His heroic appearance was extraordinary, and a majestic aura gathered from the heavens and the earth, as if a divine king had descended. His handsome face was filled with a smile as he looked indifferently at Du Xiaofu and said casually, "You have already finished. You have no right to step on the martial-proof platform." When the smile on his face and his indifferent words fell, all the spectators in the square felt the heavens and the earth tremble, and the atmosphere completely froze. He's very strong. Experts like Heng Qi and Su Lingzi were all outstanding existences in their respective clans, and there was no need to mention the pride in their hearts. However, at that moment, they were secretly impressed by the brocade-robed youth. Just the invisible aura alone was enough to suppress them. If you want to challenge me, take out the treasure first. Otherwise, you still have no right. At this moment, Du Xiaofu's words caused everyone to be stunned. That arrogant fellow was actually still thinking about the treasure. After that, Du Xiaofu seemed to feel that he needed to emphasize again. He glanced at the brocade-robed youth and said, "Without the treasure, I don't have the time to play with you." Hearing that, the spectators in the square fiercely twitched their eyes. That fellow's head seemed to be filled with only treasures. The brocade-robed youth's eyes also twitched as he looked at Du Xiaofu. A smile appeared on his face, but it was a smile that was filled with contempt and indifference. Boom! The space trembled violently, and an item flew out from the brocade-robed youth's hand. The heavens and the earth instantly trembled, and the runes in the sky flickered. A terrifying aura rushed out, and a dazzling light rose up like the sun. The entire square was dazzling. It was an ancient and simple yellow wheel that emitted rumbling sounds. It revolved like a star, and it gave others a feeling of unparalleled pressure. The wheel was shining, and it was bathed in divine light. It was incomparably sacred, and a rain of light poured down. However, the sound it made was like thunder. When the ancient wheel appeared, all the disciples of the legalism school became solemn. Their faces were solemn, and there were even disciples who knelt down in front of the wheel. That's a half-step sacred tool. It has a spiritual saint soul that can protect our race. Some of the disciples of the legalism school exclaimed, and their expressions were solemn and respectful. At that moment, the purple gold heavenly tower in Du Xiaofu's divine watchtower emitted a rumbling sound, as if it was attracted by something. That feeling was something that even the coiling dragon war god armor and the Buddha shadow pearl did not cause. The purple gold heavenly tower is a prodigal thing. It seems like it wants to swallow that plate. Du Xiaofu thought. He communicated with the purple gold heavenly tower in his mind, and calmed down the restless soul of the purple gold heavenly tower. This plate is not bad. I can accept it. Du Xiaofu said seriously. He could feel that the ritual tool was extraordinary. It had a unique aura and it was very powerful. As soon as he finished speaking, Du Xiaofu did not hesitate to set up a seal and directly sealed the World Quake Plate in the void. That's the World Quake Plate, a half-step sacred tool. That arrogant brat actually called it a plate. Some of the disciples of the legalism school were angry. That was the World Quake Plate of the legalism school, a true half-step sacred tool. It was the closest thing to a sacred tool. Only someone like Han Qianran was qualified to own it. The young man in the brocade robe looked at Du Xiaofu and saw that he was setting up a seal on his world quake plate. He secretly showed some disdain and said, "I don't need the world quake plate to deal with you. I'm just letting you see it. It's a half-step sacred tool, the treasure of the legalism school. Noisy. Can't I study my own things myself?" However, Du Xiaofu interrupted the young man in the brocade robe. His words shocked everyone once again. It turned out that this guy already regarded the world quake plate as his own. The young man in the brocade robe looked at Du Xiaofu. His smile froze on his handsome face, and then it slowly faded away. Du Xiaofu's battle robe swept over him. He looked straight at him. Their eyes met, and suddenly their eyes shone brightly. The whole place was dead silent. They stared at the martial-proof platform without blinking. Everyone knew that neither of the two people on the platform would be easy to deal with. "Remember my name, Han Qianran. This will be the end of you." The young man in the brocade robe spoke. The light in his eyes became brighter and brighter. A terrifying aura erupted, gathering the energy of heaven and earth in all directions. It shook the void, and the entire martial-proof platform suddenly surged. Du Xiaofu knew this name. He had learned from Li Da's primordial spirit that this was the strongest existence among the younger generation of the legalism school. He was an existence that his peers in the legalism school could not catch up with. "Also remember my name, the God of War. The God of War that cannot be defeated, the God that cannot be defeated." Du Xiaofu spoke. He waved his fists and stared at Han Qianran. When his voice fell, a bright light surged on his body. A terrifying aura filled the air. Silver-gold lightning arcs filled the sky, and a terrible primordial spirit storm swept across. A very strong primordial spirit that has integrated with the spiritual thunder. This kind of talent can be regarded as unprecedented for an outsider. However, I also have a spiritual thunder. Han Qianran smiled, but the coldness on his face gradually became more intense. Then, a golden thunderbolt suddenly burst out from between his eyebrows and shot into the sky. A terrifying energy fluctuation suddenly surged through the whole world. Then, an extremely strange golden lightning arc with golden lightning flashed across the sky. The golden lightning arc exploded in the sky and swept in all directions. Crash! Dazzling golden lightning poured down as countless golden bolts of lightning descended from the sky. They were densely packed and enveloped the entire martial-proof platform. The martial-proof platform was like a prison made of lightning, and it completely enveloped Du Xiaofu. "It's a spiritual thunder." Du Xiaofu looked around. The thunder martial vein in his body suddenly began to stir. The primordial spirit of the red-bone horse in his mind suddenly lit up with bright lightning arcs. What made Du Xiaofu even more surprised was that the strange round stone in his mind's Niwen palace seemed to be affected by something at this moment and wanted to break free from his mind. The divine thunder of the heavenly soul. That kid will definitely lose. The terrifying thunder might rolled and the golden lightning flashed in the sky. Countless disciples of the legalism school trembled and smiled. That kid could no longer be arrogant. "Kid, it's time to end it. You relied on the spiritual thunder to run rampant. Now that you've been defeated by my divine thunder of the soul destruction, it's the real end. I'll even give you a chance to set up the talisman array, the greatest reliance of the talisman master." Chapter 1548. Dazzling golden lightning emanated from Han Qianran's body and gathered around him. The dense lightning was so dense that it became even more dazzling. It could destroy souls and primordial spirits. No need. It would take too much time to defeat you with a talisman formation. Du Xiaofu looked at Han Qianran and shook his head. He looked at the golden lightning and licked his lips. It seemed to be able to destroy all souls and primordial spirits. If he had the chance to integrate with the heavenly soul divine thunder, he would be able to advance further. "You are indeed arrogant. But you can't afford to be arrogant in front of me," Han Qianran said indifferently, revealing his white teeth. The next moment, his body moved like lightning, like a tiger pouncing on its prey. He moved like thunder. In Du Xiaofu's eyes, His figure expanded rapidly. Golden lightning arcs gathered in the sky, and with a golden lightning finger, he pointed at Du Xiaofu's forehead. What amazing speed! Heng Qi, Void Spirit, and the others could not help but exclaim. Han Qianran's speed was far above theirs. Even with the power of their primordial spirits, it was difficult to catch him. But Du Xiaofu dodged it. His body was like duckweed, standing on the ground in an arc, like a roly-poly toy, directly avoiding Han Qianran's golden thunderbolt fingerprints. Swish! Han Qianran's eyes moved as fast as lightning. He stretched out his 5 fingers and turned them into a lightning claw. It twisted the space, squeezed the air, and pierced through the void. It went straight for Du Xiaofu's throat. Fast, fierce, accurate. Han Qianran's first move was too much for the eyes to take in. His speed and power were a perfect combination. He didn't have Heng Qi or Qi Jiajun's earth-shattering power, but the danger contained in this move was far greater than Heng Qi and the others. Fierce and swift. It was obvious that Han Qianran had been through hundreds of battles. His achievements were definitely not as simple as growing up in a greenhouse. At this moment, this move was enough to prove that Han Qianran had once bathed in blood and had gone through countless trials. The claw print crushed the air and instantly reached Du Xiaofu's throat. But at this moment, just as the claw was about to reach Du Xiaofu's throat, Du Xiaofu's figure rapidly retreated. He shook his arm, and a fist collided with the claw. Bang! This collision was like a bolt of lightning descending from the sky. Lightning flashed and countless electric arcs spread. Destructive lightning strength was unleashed at this moment, causing the space to continuously tremble. Dang dang! Han Qianran staggered back 2 steps. His eyes were changing color, and his palms were numb and painful. What shocked Han Qianran even more was that his opponent was as immovable as a mountain, like a boulder. His heavenly soul divine thunder did not have any effect at all. It surged into his opponent's body and did not seem to cause any harm to his primordial spirit. Instead, it seemed to be devoured by his primordial spirit. Han Qianran's feeling was right, but at this moment, it was not Du Xiaofu's primordial spirit that was devouring the power of the heavenly soul divine thunder. Du Xiaofu's primordial spirit wanted to devour it, but it was stopped by the round stone in his Naiwen palace. That stone was like a living creature, and it could not wait to rush out and devour it. It was completely unafraid of the terrible power of the lightning. It was like sucking breast milk, and the more the better. This made Du Xiaofu surprised. That strange stone was too strange. Oh no, it seems that he did not gain any advantage. Countless legalism disciples who had been watching intently and expectantly saw that not only did Han Qianran not gain any advantage, but he also seemed to be at a disadvantage. They began to feel incredulous, and their bodies, which had just become relaxed, suddenly became dignified again. Not very good. Is this all you have? Du Xiaofu said, looking at Han Qianran. His battle clothes flapped in the wind, and he was not afraid of the golden electric arcs that filled the sky. It's just a test. You are indeed qualified to make me use my full strength. The moment his voice fell, a ripple visible to the naked eye spread out from Han Qianran's body and swept up into the sky. Suddenly, Han Qianran's hair stood on end, and his body erupted with divine light. His eyes flickered like the sun, and his aura swept out in all directions. The aura of the sealed domain realm descended, but it was far stronger than ordinary sealed domain realm cultivators. It was accompanied by a sky full of golden lightning, and the pressure was unimaginable. The terrifying pressure made the surrounding legalism disciples go limp, and the experts of the major clans, including Heng Qi, felt their hearts tremble. The sealed domain realm. Han Qianran has really stepped into the sealed domain realm. The young experts of the major clans and factions trembled. Huang Ling and the gorgeous woman not far away were also shocked. At this moment, Han Qianran was like a supreme being on the proving stage, surrounded by golden lightning that clanged loudly. His aura was like that of a mighty army galloping forward. His body emitted a dazzling light, and his eyes also surged with dazzling lightning. The world was in an uproar, and countless people's hearts trembled. The young man in the brocade robe was too powerful. You're no match for me. Han Qianran said, his voice like thunder that shook one's soul. The golden lightning around him surged like golden waves, and his divine might was awe-inspiring. If he came out, he would be able to sweep through the world, stand alone, and shake the world. It's just the sealed domain realm. No pressure. Du Xiaofu replied, but inwardly he was also somewhat shocked. Legalism was indeed powerful, and no faction above Kyushu could compare. Let alone Han Qianran, even if Li Chia came out, none of the major factions above Kyushu would be able to resist him. However, Du Xiaofu was not afraid. It was just the sealed domain realm. He had seen more than one sealed domain realm cultivator, and he had killed more than one so far. Han Qianran was far stronger than the sealed domain realm cultivators in the outside world, but Du Xiaofu was not the same as before. Although he did not use martial power, Du Xiaofu's tempering of his physical body was not just for show. Not long ago, Du Xiaofu's physical body and cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds, thanks to the benefits he had gained from the rich dragon chi baptism in the palace. Now, Du Xiaofu could sweep through the world with just his physical strength alone. Now that he had the power of a talisman master, there was nothing to be afraid of. Is that so? If you can still be so stubborn, then I'll let you know what despair is. As Han Qianran spoke, a majestic force swept out, causing the void to tremble, heaven and earth to tremble, clouds to move, and the void to shake. A terrifying aura erupted from Han Qianran's body once again, affecting the energy of heaven and earth in all directions. The void above the demonstration platform began to blur and distort. Heavens, what kind of power is this? It can affect heaven and earth. This aura is too terrifying. The surrounding heroes were truly moved and horrified. That terrifying power was affecting heaven and earth. At this moment, Han Qianran was like a god descending, and his pressure was terrifying. At this moment, Han Qianran had already stepped onto the demonstration platform. The void flowed with a hazy radiance and a sacred aura descended, causing the surrounding disciples of legalism to look up at the void and kneel down. I know, that's the power of a supreme being. Han Qianran is a supreme being. No, he hasn't reached the true supreme being level yet. Among the various families, someone exclaimed and trembled with fear. No, he's not a true supreme being, but a half-step supreme being. Han Qianran has surpassed the human supreme being and became a half-step supreme being. In the crowd, Huang Linger spoke, her seven-colored eyes rippling with divine splendor. A half-step supreme being was already terrifying enough, but anyone who was related to a supreme being would be terrifying. A half-step supreme being. In the distance, the experts of legalism and the old man smiled. A half-step supreme being was one of the strongest existences in the world. Han Qianran's talent had surpassed the human supreme being. Although he was only a half-step supreme being, it was enough to look down on the world and shake the world. A half-step supreme being. Du Xiaofu looked at Han Qianran and felt the power of his aura. Then, he murmured softly, Xiaojing seems to be a natural-born supreme being. The mysterious runes intertwined and the world quake plate shone. Through the restrictions set by Du Xiaofu, it also emitted an amazing fluctuation. Obviously, Han Qianran was going to use the world quake plate. He wanted to use the world quake plate to verify it. He did not believe that he would be defeated by an outsider. Bastard, that's my treasure. Du Xiaofu's heart trembled. The world quake plate was too terrifying. It was going to destroy the restrictions set by him. It was impossible to restrain it. Swish! The space between his eyebrows shone and an ancient aura fluctuated. Du Xiaofu directly activated the ancient desolate space and let the space-time fluctuate to store the world quake plate. In order to prevent Dragon Fifth and the others from copying him, Du Xiaofu did not hesitate to store the Heavenly Dragon cover, Coiling Dragon War God armor, Evil Warding Yin-Yang chain, and Mystic Radiance Void sword into the ancient desolate space. Han Qianran's face changed again. He felt that the world quake plate had suddenly lost its connection with him. This was almost impossible, but it did happen. Oh no, I lost contact with the barbarian war spear. No, I also lost contact with my dragon shadow phoenix dancing whip. My evil warding yin-yang chain has also lost its trace. I can't contact it anymore. At the same time, Zhang Wenjing, Hui Mutian, and the others also felt this incredible change. Their hearts were bleeding. How dare you touch my treasure? Get out of my way. The moment he withdrew the ancient desolate space, Du Xiaofu was enraged. Like lightning, he kicked Han Qianran's chest fiercely. Bang! Like a stone being kicked, Han Qianran's ribs were broken. In the muffled sound of thunder from his chest, his body was kicked out of the martial-proof platform. Blood spurted out of his mouth. Han Qianran's body finally landed heavily on the square. This kick broke the hearts of all the legalism members, old and young, like broken glass. Legalism, is this the strength of the younger generation? Du Xiaofu glanced in all directions and looked at the densely packed figures in the square. Suddenly, he looked up at the sky and his body glowed. He shouted, "Is there no one left in legalism? Is there anyone who dares to come out and fight?" His voice was like a raging wave that swept across the entire legalism, shaking the clouds and the earth. Is he challenging the entire legalism? All the major forces and families were shocked. This guy was clearly challenging the entire legalism at this moment. How arrogant! This is challenging the legalism. In the distance, the old man of legalism suddenly became furious and his face changed color. The mysterious young man kicked Han Qianran off the martial-proof platform and declared that there was no one left in legalism. How arrogant! This was a challenge to the legalism. Since ancient times, this was definitely the first time that someone dared to be so presumptuous in legalism. I respect life, so I will give you a chance to let you know that from the beginning to the end, no matter how strong you are in the outside world, you are just a weak existence in the outside world. You are the bloodline abandoned by the legalism, not worthy to exist in the bloodline of the legalism. You will pollute the bloodline of the legalism and you are destined to die, don't you think so? Han Ma's indifferent words were very calm. His words spread throughout the surroundings, causing countless disciples of the legalism to be puzzled, and some even could not understand the coldness in his words. Swoosh swoosh. But at this moment, from the legalism, countless old people's gazes suddenly fell on Du Xiaofu, and there were many hidden auras that descended. Han Qianran, Qin Zhe, Li Chuya and the others' gazes also suddenly changed, and they looked directly at the young man in battle robes in the void above the martial-proof platform. In the end, I was exposed. Du Xiaofu was in the air, looking at Han Ma, and there was a light in the depths of his eyes, and a faint golden light began to surge. What's wrong? Is it strange? Are you surprised that I know? Han Ma smiled faintly and said, "You hid very well, and should have the magical power to change your appearance, but your personality will not change. I guess that you would definitely come. You dual cultivate martial arts and talisman masters, but so do I. The presence of the spiritual root in the power of your soul is very well hidden, but that's the heavenly soul spiritual root of my school of legalism. No matter how you try to hide it, you won't be able to escape my detection. So, your so-called war god is the abandoned bloodline of the legalism. You came back this time to find an opportunity to prove yourself. If you want to step into the legalism, then you have to show me enough strength to satisfy me, or you will always be faced with contempt and disdain. Now, I can give you this opportunity, a chance to fight with me with all your strength, but in the end, you may be very miserable, and you may not have it tomorrow. Of course, you can refuse, but once you refuse, you can piss off back to where you came from. Don't ever set foot in my school of legalism again. As for your other debts, someone will come and settle them with you when the time comes. As for me, I can't be bothered to attack you today." Chi-chi. When Han Ma's voice fell, the countless gazes of the entire square stopped on Du Xiaofu. Could he be? Many people had already guessed the reason, and were shocked, in disbelief, and even doubtful. If it's possible, I don't want to set foot in the school of legalism at all. You know very well whether I want to come or whether the school of legalism has gone to such great lengths to invite me back. As for the abandoned bloodline of the legalism, how laughable is that? My father is Du Tingxian, and I am a descendant of the Du family. Chapter 1557. Buzz. In an ancient and boundless space, purple mist rose all around. An otherworldly woman's delicate body suddenly emitted mystical purple lightning arcs that filled the air. However, there seemed to be some kind of restriction in this space that could isolate heaven and earth. Then, the purple lightning arc disappeared from her delicate body again. How can this be? Why did a martial vein suddenly appear in my body? It seems to be related to lightning. The woman's delicate body trembled, and her face was filled with doubt. Then, ripples appeared in her eyes as she muttered softly, "Brother, have you come out from the Golden Rock clan? Wait until I become an expert, I'll help you escape." Inside and outside the martial-proof platform, the surroundings were silent. All the living beings were trembling, and their eyes were dazed. No, this is impossible. How could Brother Ingemo lose? Then, the eyes of the younger generation of legalism trembled, and they were in disbelief. The young men and women of legalism clenched their fists, and their nails dug deep into their flesh, causing blood to flow out. They couldn't believe the scene in front of them. No, this can't be real. Brother Ingemo definitely won't lose. The young women of legalism shed tears, and their eyes were in a daze. He's so strong. Mo Junyu, Jiang Yunfeng, Su Lingzi, and the others were deeply shocked at this moment. They could only smile bitterly. The Demon King was so terrifying. Thinking back to 2 days ago, they still wanted to suppress him. Now that they thought about it, it was already lucky that they weren't ruthlessly trampled on that day. The guy that Big Sister likes is indeed not bad. He passed my test. Qi Jiajun curled his lips, and the shock on his face couldn't be concealed. Then a smile appeared on his face. Qi Jiajun also understood. No wonder that guy didn't hurt him yesterday. It was because he was his future brother-in-law, and that guy didn't dare to hurt him. In the distance, all the old men and experts of legalism had solemn expressions. What kind of martial vein is that? It's too strong. I've never seen such a lightning martial vein before. The Golden Rock Supreme Beast can fuse with martial veins. It's so strong. Some experts of legalism exclaimed and looked at each other. That kind of strength made even them tremble. You're stronger than I expected, but I haven't lost. Han Ningmo raised his head and looked at Du Xiaofu. His messy purple hair danced in the wind as he wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth with his long sleeves. His demeanor did not change at all. No matter how disheveled he was, his posture and temperament were still extraordinary. Boom! As Han Ningmo's voice fell, the void above the martial arts demonstration platform began to tremble. Dazzling runes began to spread out from his body. The light was so resplendent and dazzling that no one dared to look directly at it. The terrifying aura was like an erupting volcano, causing the indestructible martial-proof platform to show signs of cracking at this moment. At this moment, the aura on Han Ningmo's body began to rise violently. His power increased and his aura skyrocketed. At the same time, the entire legalism heaven and earth had a mysterious and mighty force madly converging, descending upon the martial-proof platform and enveloping Han Ningmo's body. At this moment, Han Ningmo's eyes shone brightly. There was no trace of embarrassment in his eyes. Instead, he exuded an invincible confidence. Between his brows, divine light began to dance like flames. Above his forehead, rings of divine light appeared one after another. As the rings of divine light appeared one after another, Han Ningmo's aura became stronger and stronger. Rumble! When the last 6 rings of divine light circled above his forehead like divine rings, a vast aura spread out from Han Ningmo's surroundings. A supreme being was suppressing all living beings in the world. It was also at this moment that the entire legalism heaven and earth shook. Tides rose and fell. Heaven and earth rumbled and the ground cracked. Thunder rumbled and lightning flashed. It was a heavenly phenomenon. At this moment, countless living beings in the surroundings knelt down involuntarily. The aura that descended was simply unstoppable. Supreme Being, Haning Ma is a supreme being who has undergone nirvana. A supreme being who has undergone nirvana. Haning Ma is indeed a monster. He's too powerful. The hearts of the Qi families Jun, Mo Junyu, Heng Qi, and the others trembled. Everyone looked at Haning Ma on the martial-proof platform. Those 6 rings were the symbol of a supreme being who had undergone nirvana. They contained the might of heaven and earth. This result caused Mo Junyu and the others to be shocked. However, they didn't seem to be surprised. It was as if they had already received the news in advance. A supreme being who has undergone nirvana should have reached the nirvana stage. In the crowd, the girl called Hong and I by Huang Linger had ripples in her eyes. Haning Ma will not lose. All the elders and experts of legalism had solemn expressions. However, their eyes were filled with conviction. At this moment, they were emitting divine light. I'm a supreme being who has undergone nirvana. I'm an existence that you need to look up to. Prostrate before me and tremble for me. Haning Ma spoke. His body shone with resplendent light, erupting with endless light that shot into the sky. It illuminated the heavens and earth, causing them to tremble and resonate with him. At this moment, all the living beings in legalism heaven seemed to have heard the Tao voice of the 9 heavens. On the martial-proof platform, ancient runes flickered in the void around Haning Ma. They merged with heaven and earth, bringing with them strong gales and Tao voice resounding. All the living beings were dazzled. The nirvana of a grand supreme, he is the nirvana of a grand supreme. In legalism, an old man couldn't help but tremble and exclaim. He recognized the 9 divine halos. It was the nirvana of a grand supreme. The nirvana of a grand supreme. At this moment, in legalism, countless old men opened and closed their eyes, and divine light shot out in all directions, and they trembled. At this moment, after the Grand Supreme's palm, Haning Ma's eyes rippled like stormy waves. Now, have you seen the real Grand Supreme? Du Xiaofu spoke. On the surface of his body, mysterious runes fluctuated. The light was gorgeous and moving, resplendent and shocking. His entire body was shining, dazzling and mysterious. This was a true paragon. When the voice was heard, Du Xiaofu moved, and with a wave of his hand, his right hand stretched out, and slightly clenched into a fist. He stretched out his index finger, and his finger lightly tapped on the frozen Grand Supreme's palm in front of him. Walala! When the finger touched, the terrifying Grand Supreme's palm was like smoke blown away by the wind, and suddenly dispersed quietly, and disappeared without a trace. That light finger had destroyed Haning Ma's Grand Supreme's palm. However, Du Xiaofu's finger also directly tapped on Haning Ma's palm. Ka. At this moment, a monstrous and resplendent rune light appeared, and the moment the finger and palm collided, there were sparks. Then, as if Haning Ma was struck by lightning, his palm directly cracked and shattered, and turned into countless fragments of blood mist. Then Haning Ma let out a blood-curdling scream, and spat out blood. His entire arm was spasming, and in the last moment, his entire arm exploded from the shoulder, and his body was like a meteor, and crashed into the martial-proof stage from midair. Rumble! The unbreakable, indestructible runes on the martial-proof stage were shattered, and the surrounding ground of the square was also cracking, and the cracks on the ground spread out like a spider web. Haning Ma's body was buried in the pile of rubble on the martial-proof stage. At this moment, the hearts of all the disciples of legalism were buried in the pile of rubble. The pride of all the disciples of legalism were crushed and buried together. Boom! In midair, Du Xiaofu's figure landed, and stepped on the pile of rubble that buried Haning Ma. His body was glowing, and his tall and straight figure was surging with pressure. That was the Grand Supreme, and it caused all around to prostrate on the ground. Du Xiaofu raised his head to look at the sky, and his eyes were like 2 dazzling suns that were about to rise, and the resplendent light shot straight to the sky. Suddenly, Du Xiaofu shouted loudly, and accompanied by lightning and thunder, and a majestic and mighty pressure that swept across the entire legalism. Mother, Xiaojing, I've come to find you, where are you? When the voice was heard, it echoed endlessly, and affected the majestic power of the heavens and earth, and like the roar of thunder, it shook the entire heavens and earth, and shook people's souls. This voice was hoarse, and when people heard it, their hearts choked, and they mourned endlessly. Then, under countless gazes, Han Ningma, who was covered in blood and had lost an arm, was grabbed by Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu's claw was on Han Ningma's neck. At this moment, as long as he exerted a little force, it would be enough to destroy Han Ningma's soul. At this moment, Han Ningma's purple hair was stained with blood. He struggled for a while but to no avail. His cold eyes were sluggish, but more than that, there was fear. As arrogant as he was, how could Han Ningma have thought that the person he regarded as an ordinary person, an ant that he didn't put in his eyes, was a supreme being that had surpassed his lesser supreme being? There was a fine line between them, but the difference between the two levels was like heaven and earth. A supreme being that had undergone nirvana was enough to completely shatter all of his confidence and pride. Du Xiaofu, what are you doing? In legalism, some of the old men came back to their senses and immediately exclaimed. The Demon King, Du Xiaofu, had already killed a lot of legalism experts. At this moment, they definitely didn't think that Du Xiaofu wouldn't dare to kill Han Ningma. However, if Han Ningma was killed, the price was something that the entire legalism couldn't afford to pay.